I'd like to thank P-Cube for giving me a review code to cover Class of Heroes 3 Remaster in this video. Class of Heroes 3, unlike previous games in the Class of Heroes series, has never had a prior English localization before this particular version of the game. The story of this original game's planned localization is a lengthy, melancholy one that started toward the end of the PSP era and lasted far into the PS4 era. For over 15 years, Western fans of dungeon crawlers and the Class of Heroes series have been waiting for this game. And finally, we get an improved remaster of the original that even fixes the bugs that were in the original version of the game. Called a kamige, or divine game by some vocal Japanese fans on the internet, Class of Heroes 3, or Totomono 3 as it's called in Japan, is an amazing dungeon crawler that has successfully forged its own identity within its own dungeon crawling niche through its expansive 48 job classes, which I'll refer to here on as courses, and 12 races. 12 of those courses are exclusive to a character's race. Several are locked behind progressing in the story, and each school has one exclusive course that will unlock after progressing through their route only. Additionally, the school you start with will give you the option to select that school's special course at the beginning of the game. The school courses from other schools become available as you progress through the game though, so I wouldn't spend too much time overthinking your choice of school. There are also the general courses available to all the schools at the beginning of the game to fill in any gaps you may have in your parties. When you start Class of Heroes 3, you'll have to choose which school to enroll in among Draken, Christiana, and Takachiho. Draken has a fantasized Western cultural theme with beginning course options like Pirate, Trickster, Nun, and Doctor. Takachiho is more or less an Asian-themed school with courses like Miko, Kung Fu, and Origami. And then there's Christiana, which is, anime? How anime? There's courses like Tsundere, Little Sister or Brother, and Otaku, among others. The schools more or less determine the characters you'll interact with the most and give you early access to the school's themed courses. The beginning of the story will also be a little bit different depending on the school you choose, but it's important to note that the story will eventually let you meet all the other characters and give you access to their themed courses as well. Only one school-themed course will be locked out from each school until you can do the quest during a playthrough with that school. What I'm saying is don't overthink your choice of school. After you choose a school, you'll need to create a party. There are preset characters created for you that you can use, or you can create your own characters from scratch. You can re-roll your characters for more bonus points, which you can allocate up to 10 of in each stat. But by max level, everything will even out anyways, so I wouldn't try too hard doing this. I personally just re-rolled until I had 25 or more bonus points to sink into an offense stat and a few defensive stats. Your course can be changed with almost no hassle. You can go solo or have a party of up to 6 characters. The course determines proficiency with certain types of weapons and armor, as well as influencing a race's natural stats. Each course has unique spreads of skills and or magic that is learned with the accumulation of points after every battle. But if you change courses, you will lose access to any skills and magic you've learned in a previous course unless you change back. You can see the percentage of course mastery in the course selection menu or stat menu, and see the skills you can learn in a given course. This game has no stat, alignment, or level restrictions on courses, but some courses will require serious experience point investment before they become powerful, and others will be very useful right out of the gate. If you're using, say, a fairy sage for example, you'll want to make sure you have a party member taking a course where they can use the cover skill to block enemies from sniping the sage. It might also be a good idea to have a party member in courses that learn healing skills or can create magic walls. Many of the school's unique courses have these skills baked in, but don't neglect the general courses like Thief or Knight if you feel like they'll cover a weakness in your party for you. After you've created a party, you can determine whether to put your characters in the front or back row. Front row characters tend to get attacked more often and can attack effectively with short-ranged weapons. Weapons with longer ranges can reach further rows of enemies. Just because a character is in the back row doesn't make them safe, though, as enemies can and will attack your squishier characters if they have longer ranged weapons. And if your party's agility stats are too low, you can get attacked from behind, putting the back row characters in front and giving the enemy the first strike. You can change rows mid-battle, but it does use up the character's turn. One other important thing to do before you adventure out is to set the compatibility of your party through the compatibility menu. Each party member gets to choose another member to like and another member to dislike. You can go full harem or create a punching bag unit everyone hates for roleplay purposes. But when characters are hated too much, it adversely affects their stats, so beware. The benefits of tweaking compatibility are to create access to powerful compatibility skills that can be used in battle and to confer stat bonuses to liked party members. Some combinations of compatibility between different races can give additional stat bonuses too, so it's good to experiment. The schools and settlements will have access to different features, but in general, the dormitory is where you can recover and store or take out items from your inventory. The store is where you can buy and sell items. The laboratory is where you can combine items to create new ones, disassemble items for their parts, or upgrade your items for better performance. If you have an alchemist, you can get a little more out of the system and save money on alchemy too if you keep them leveled up. The infirmary lets you recover from bad status. The library is where you can pick up new quests and see all kinds of information collected during your playthrough, like maps, enemies encountered, NPCs, and items. You'll want to visit the library regularly to pick up the new quests that open up throughout the game. The staff room is where you can manage your party. Once you have a party, you can finally go adventuring. The gameplay in the beginning is going to be challenging as your characters don't have proficiency in their courses yet, but after you've gained a few levels, your characters will probably learn some important fundamental skills like healing, covering, or theft skills for safely obtaining treasure chests. You'll want to get better equipment as soon as you can, which can mean taking advantage of the game's alchemy system to create or upgrade your 0 or 1 defense equipment, or purchase better equipment. Equipment can be better than the stats suggest too. A lot of beginner armor has a natural weakness to elements, and some items with minus scores have bonuses like magic augment on them, which you'll want to keep an eye on for magic users. Even your mages can equip powerful weapons and armor to smash enemies before they learn spells in the beginning. Just be aware that fighter type courses will get more attack power out of strong weapons than mages will. If you've designed a decent party, many battles will eventually start ending in seconds as you get a rhythm for the gameplay, and it feels very satisfying. You'll start accumulating enough money to alchemize equipment upgrades, and you'll start finding better equipment for your party members. I think the course system makes the game much easier the farther in you get, but a few of the bosses may lead to some surprise game overs if you're not careful. The level design in this game is great, with a good mix of exterior and interior environments. There are no anti-magic squares with pits in water that instantly game over your party like in previous games. The game in general doesn't overdo the anti-magic floors, but there are still plenty of turnaround floors that might make you go into the map to see where you're going. Most of my game overs personally were opening trapped chests that had very dangerous enemy encounters in them that I couldn't escape from easily. On that note, it definitely doesn't hurt to carry some smoke bombs with you in the dungeons. The gameplay loop of adventuring, managing loot, and completing quests is more or less what Class of Heroes 3 Remaster revolves around. It's simple, but it's fun, and it's a lot easier to get into than it was in Class of Heroes 1 and 2, where you had to manage affinity, alignment, and race early on to make sure you had a good party at the end of those games. In those games, it was also a little more involved to change your courses, and the classic wizardry elements made the gameplay in those games a lot more tedious too. Class of Heroes 3 is just a lot easier to get into, and all the courses make it fun to experiment with things. There's a little more to the gameplay of Class of Heroes 3 that opens up about midway into the story, but I don't want to spoil the game. I will say that I think the game gets much better around the midpoint, where the world really opens up, and you get some more course options. Because there's 12 races and no race or alignment restrictions in this game to complicate things, I've mathed out there are over 432 combinations of possible race and class in this game. If you've ever fantasized about making a fairy kung fu artist or a demon otaku, this game will let you roleplay that. This class system evolves even further about halfway into the game to let you further customize your party too. Now, as awesome as this game is, there are a few things to consider before you buy the game, especially for players brand new to the Class of Heroes series. For one, there isn't much of a tutorial in Class of Heroes 3, which will unfortunately leave a lot of players unfamiliar with dungeon crawlers a bit lost if they haven't played the previous games. This original game released during an age of instruction manuals, and as this is more of a remodeling of that game than a remake, there's no proper tutorial baked into the game. I've linked to the Japanese wiki below for the original game, which is still very accurate for this game if you use your browser or AI to translate it. Also, be aware that this game only has Japanese voices, so no English voice acting. I grew up on subbed anime, so it doesn't bother me, but I know it can be a deal breaker for some people, so I just thought I'd mention it. This game does share some item management flaws with the previous games, unfortunately. It's so frustrating how quickly your inventory can fill up in these dungeons, and then you have to manage it all in school. One way I've made this more bearable is to create multiple parties and stage them in important locations where quest NPCs and storage are located. This lets me return to the title screen, load my game, and select the party where I can access storage, quests, and stores to sell or alchemize items. Then I just resume the game with my main party. I just wish I could carry 1,000 items instead of 100, and that the storage was 4,000 items instead of 490. If you don't do this little trick of leaving parties everywhere, you'll be running around or warping all over the place with your main party. You can also choose to store your items in different locations, but I think this just makes it more confusing when you're looking for items you've stored. My other complaint is about one of the game's fun, unique features, and that's alchemy itself. There are multiple options for doing alchemy. You can go straight to the item you want to create if you have its recipe, or you can just select the component items. They did streamline alchemy a bit from how I remember it in previous games by letting you select the item you want to alchemize, but you still have to navigate a long list to find what you want. Anyways, all this menuing takes so much time, I didn't even bother optimizing my own party, as I could just optimize my knight's defense and have them cover the defense for the rest of my party for the majority of the game. I really only spent a significant amount of time with this system when I noticed enemies were starting to hit me a little harder, or I wasn't doing enough damage to to clear fights quickly. On that note, you can cheaply upgrade low-level equipment to carry you far enough in the game to get much better equipment fairly easily if you take the time to use alchemy. It does help immensely with early game survivability. The sheer number of combinations of race and class is impressive and fun to fool around with, but at the end of the day, you're realistically only going to invest most of your time into a party of 6 characters, which means a vast number of those classes and races will be unused for the entire game unless you split your time among developing multiple parties. Sure, the game does motivate you to replay the game starting as different schools to unlock the exclusive courses, but since you get to keep your party and equipment and everything, there's very little reason to create new characters or reincarnate to new characters and use new courses even after restarting with a different school. Finally, the game gives a decent challenge in the beginning, which can be overwhelming for people unfamiliar with dungeon crawlers, but I think things get almost too easy past the mid-game. Maybe I just chose really powerful classes too though. When you can clear mobs with one spell and warp to pretty much any square in a dungeon, the warp traps and floor pits start to become meaningless. To be fair, it was one course on one of my party members that let me do this. The uneven challenge honestly doesn't bother me too much, but I thought I should mention it. I don't know about the Switch and PlayStation 5, but the Steam version of this game has some basic settings you can adjust. The Maniac save mode setting limits where you can save, but rewards players better in battle. I personally stuck to normal. There are a few various standard graphics, resolution, and audio options. You can turn off the fun emoticons that show on your party when they take action, or make small adjustments to where your party portraits display on the UI. It's basic, but all the important settings are there. I think players who really enjoyed Class of Heroes 2 like I did will really enjoy this game. Class of Heroes 3 is definitely a lot easier to recommend to new players than previous games in the series due to its simplified party mechanics, but the game doesn't really have a tutorial. You also don't need to play Class of Heroes or Class of Heroes 2 to enjoy this game, as the story is completely new. The story to Class of Heroes 3 is a very typical anime school drama with the power of love and friendship and all that stuff. I'm not crazy about school settings in video games myself, but the gameplay carries the experience for me. And the post-game is satisfying too, as it's more of a story extension than a repetitive grind a lot of games like to shoehorn into their games. I love seeing games that never got a chance in the West get localizations, even 15 years after the original game releases, and this remaster is a vast improvement over the original with its improved graphics and bug fixes. Although I wasn't one of the people eagerly awaiting this game's original Western release in the 2010s, I think those people will be very happy to finally be able to play this amazing dungeon crawling JRPG here in 2025, and I can totally understand why there are people in Japan that call this game a kamige after having played it myself. The race, course, and compatibility systems are fun and the gameplay is smooth. It's definitely the best game in the Class of Heroes series in my opinion, and best of all, you won't be paying $70 for this game either regardless of the platform you purchase it on. I played Class of Heroes 3 for a satisfying 55 hours, thoroughly completing all the quests I could find and filling in all the maps. I completed one school story and the post-game, so I could play through the game at least 2 more times to cover the other schools and platinum trophy this game if I cared to do so. As someone who loves JRPGs but isn't as crazy about dungeon crawlers, I really liked this game and I'd definitely play a Class of Heroes 4 if Zero Div and Acquire developed it. I just hope they refine the alchemy system a bit and give more of a reason to have and develop more parties of characters than your base party of 6 with the huge roster of courses. Class of Heroes 3 Remastered releases on Steam, Switch, and PlayStation 5 on September 18th, 2025. Thank you for watching and see you next time.